Hi, everyone. Welcome to our live 10 Questions With series. Here we chat with entrepreneurs and business leaders to ask about their journey, the lessons they've learned along the way, and any advice they can impart on the rest of us in our journeys too. Now, today we are sitting down with Jeff Davidson, the co-founder and co-CEO of Camp Gladiator, one of the fastest growing fitness companies in the United States. If you have any questions throughout our conversation, make sure to leave them in the comments. We will get on them as soon as we're done with our little Q&A, and make sure you give us some shout outs. We want to say hello right back to you wherever you are in the world. Now, without further ado, please join me in a virtual welcome for Jeff Davidson. Hi, Jeff. How are you?
I'm doing great, Kendall. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. Thanks so much for joining us. I gave a brief little introduction to Camp Gladiator, but I really don't think I could do it justice. So will you tell our audience what it's all about?
Absolutely. So about 12 years ago, my wife and I founded Camp Gladiator. We are a fitness company that's predominantly outdoor. A year ago, I would have said we're an outdoor fitness company. We meet in schools, parks, churches. We have about 1,000 franchise owner trainers that execute an amazing, life-changing group fitness program across 7 different states. And of course, with COVID, we have about now almost a third of our members on virtual, experiencing CG live from all over the United States and even in the world. So that's in a nutshell what we do, outdoor group fitness predominantly led by franchise owner trainers.
Well, we're going to get into all of that. That was just a warm up, Jeff. It's important to warm up the mind, just like we warm up our body before a workout, right?
That's right. If Allie was here, she'd probably have everyone doing some high knees and burpees right now.
Well, if you're tuning in from home, don't hesitate in doing that. Go ahead, get your push-ups in right now, get your burpees in right now, whatever you need while you're tuning in, and we certainly appreciate that. All right, Jeff, let's get into these 10 questions, starting with number 1. You founded Camp Gladiator with your wife in 2008, as you said, after competing on American Gladiator. So my first question is, what are some similarities between competing on American Gladiator and being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, well, you remember that show's had a couple different revivals, but maybe the one back in the 90s or our era, 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
But the format is you're competing against gladiators on different events. You're climbing a pyramid, they're knocking you off a pedestal, and these are like big, bulky guys that weigh 300 pounds. I competed against this guy, Titan, Mr. Natural Universe. He knocked me off the joust in 2.5 seconds.
Oh my God.
My best event. So you accumulate points, and then you race your opponent in an obstacle course, and then whoever finishes first wins and gets to go to the next round. So what is similar to business in that? First off, I would say gladiators. There are in business, whether that's a competitor, whether it's some type of a legal hurdle, some major challenge or obstacle that's standing in your way, and so I would say that's many of those I faced in the 12 years of doing Camp Gladiator. And then the end, they have this again on American Gladiators, they called it the Eliminator. It's this 3-minute obstacle course, and another I think metaphor to business is just an obstacle course that's requiring your speed and your agility and then endurance and unexpected things. And just every year of business has been that way. You think we'll be twice as big and it'll be simpler. You think you'll have more money and you'll have more stability, but it never really stops. Every year is a new obstacle course, new unexpected twists and turns. And then the last thing is, if you're doing well at the end, you get to hold the trophy up and win.
Yeah.
As someone that's extremely competitive, I see sort of business as the ultimate obstacle course, and each year a chance to celebrate new highs and just win with your team.
For sure. I'm sure the business leaders and entrepreneurs that are tuning in right now couldn't agree more with you. Okay, moving on to question number 2. You've said that there was something missing in the fitness industry, and that was really the impetus for Camp Gladiator. What was missing, and what data or research proved that it was a big enough opportunity to start a full-on business doing it?
Yeah, well, you really go into the origin story there, and I have to point to my wife. She was our market research. Growing up, Allie was not the typical person. She was a phenomenal athlete, but across multiple sports. In fact, at a large high school in Texas, she was all-state in softball and basketball. She was asked to be on the Olympic development team for soccer. She has cross-country records that are still going, and she won a state championship in volleyball. So from about 4 years old till about 22, she went on and played college basketball. Her entire life was sports and team, and fitness was part of like driving towards a purpose. And it was about doing something together with others. And you had this coach role that was really bringing all that together. Well, unfortunately for a lot of females, even with her sports acumen, there wasn't really a route to making a great living out of that. And so thankfully she started Camp Gladiator, really under the premise that fitness ought to offer something closer to team sports. That you shouldn't just have this random place you go to and put your headphones in and, dread being on an elliptical or treadmill or lifting weights by yourself. I think Allie's generation, the millennials, like they want to do fun stuff and cool stuff and do it together. And so the light bulb went off for her that there should be a better way. And it's not about the facility. It's not about the equipment. How can I bring community, purpose, accountability together in group environments and do it in some beautiful park or football field instead of in some boring box. So it came from my wife's brainchild, and I'm kind of the business side that helped put that together and put that in a model that would work.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that, but I do have to say, as a competitive millennial, I played competitive soccer my whole life as well, and as a millennial, it's so true, the team sport aspect. I mean, for me, my outlet is boxing, but it's because when you're holding mitts or you're boxing with somebody, you're having to be on that same rhythm. You're having to pay attention. You're both in it together at the same time. So I think that's great. I could not agree more with you. And speaking of your wife and you saying that you were the business side of things, it was her brainchild and you came in on the business side. That is a huge move for a marriage to start a business together. Why do you think it worked so well for you and Allie to do this? And what advice would you share with other partners or friends looking to start a business together too?
Yeah, well, my first piece of advice would be don't partner if you can help it. It's kind of like a band, when like you hear about a band and there's like 5 people on it and you're like, are you sure you need 5 people? I bet in 2 years it's going to be 3 people. But
I mean, if you asked NSYNC, it would have just been 1, and that was Justin Timberlake's.
Right. The trend is usually going down. It's because every time you add a relationship, you're adding a dynamic complexity, something that has to be aligned. Now, getting the chance to partner with your spouse, though, I think it's a 2x multiplier. If you can get it right, it's going to be twice as good of an experience as the entrepreneurial journey would be on your own. But if you get it wrong, it's probably twice as bad. And more often than not, it doesn't work out. But for us, it has, and we've worked very hard over 12 years. Could probably do a whole 30-minute webinar on strategies. I'll just share one that's really helped us, and that has been extreme role clarity. We have something called our 3 circles. What are the things that Jeff is responsible for autonomously? What are the things that Allie is responsible for autonomously? And where do we overlap? So things like our company strategy would be in this overlapping circle, but the P&L would be in my circle and product decisions would be in hers. So clarity on those things, and then revisiting that about every 6 months, because your life's evolved, the business evolves. You can have just a dynamite partnership. You can celebrate the highs and lows of business and life together, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
That is really great advice. I love that. So for any of you tuning in right now that are thinking about starting a business with a friend or a partner or significant other, take note of that. Don't forget that, the 3 circles. That's great, Jeff. And speaking of, you were talking about your kind of a role in all this. You began your career as a financial advisor, which is super useful for starting a business. What are 2 to 3 things an entrepreneur without your experience should know?
Yeah, what I think I learned from that industry was, here's 3 things for you. Number 1, hustle. We started in financial services, cold calling, building a business from scratch, and no one is going to hand anything to you. You're going to have to hustle, chase down accounts, hit the pavement, be out there with your customers. You can't delegate really revenue for the first couple of years of your business. You have to drive it. Number 2 would be, this can take a minute. It's not going to be overnight success. 1 in a million are, but probably it's going to take 2 or 3 times as long as you think. And that leads to the third one, which is good financial stewardship. Because most businesses fail because they run out of money before they get product market fit. So if you have good financial planning, good financial stewardship, and that worked with your roadmap of time and your hustle, you got a great chance to make it work.
being a finance nerd, is it okay if I call you that? Is that like
Yeah,
allowed?
that's what Allie calls me. I think I'm like moderately cool, but she calls me.
I love that. Okay, so being a finance nerd, what sort of financial information are you constantly tracking? What sort of reports are you constantly pulling? And how does that impact your overall day-to-day decision making?
Yeah, well, I'm a big believer that if you keep score, the score will improve. And,
Yeah.
so you think about what are the leading indicators for your business and what are the most important analytics for your business. For us, we have 3 levels of KPIs, our L1 KPIs. This is our revenue we're looking at on a daily basis. This is our new trainer headcount. This is our member count, our member churn. So we have about 10 L1 KPIs, and those are absolutely critical. And of course, having a great financial structure. Of course, we're using NetSuite, and my CFO knows that I'm expecting the 8th business day to have our financials closed out, on the 15th business day of each month to have our forecasts updated, and having timely, accurate financial information. I don't think you can run a business well in any scale without it.
It's great. That actually segues super nicely to my next question, which is, have any of these reports, any of this data ever led you to making some super unique business decisions?
Yeah, I think 2020 created once in 100-year data sets. And if you're in the fitness industry, we were dramatically impacted by the closures, and we rolled out a virtual product. I think we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, but we've been watching really closely the behavior of our members, and are noticing that people are preferring now what they call omni-channel experiences. So no longer are people just going to fit in a nice category. They want to be able to experience your product at home, on the road, in person. And so in real time, we're seeing this data come in and being like, this is impacting the entire future of our business. And you have to watch that really closely, and not just get a static data point, but actually over 6 months do trend analysis and see just what exact direction that's going.
Wow. Yeah. That's huge. And I love that you're saying, like, we know now that this is going to impact our future in a big way. But having never had indoor studio space, and with so many trainers across so many locations, which we're going to talk about in a second, how did you make these virtual workouts happen? And what lessons did you learn along the way?
Yeah. Never underestimate the power of fighting for your life.
Yeah, for real, which we all did last year. And still are.
Yeah, our business on January 1st relied on groups of people, 20 to 50, huddling in public places, schools, churches, municipalities, visible for everyone, sharing equipment, high-fiving, hugging. That's the CG business model. Yeah. And we learned in March that was not going to be viable, and we would have 1,000 entrepreneurs that would essentially be out of business. I remember in early March being in a meeting and hearing the word Zoom for the first time. There's this thing called Zoom. I'm like, wait a minute. So we could hack our app. We could turn all the outdoor location bubbles into Zoom links. And we just have to teach 1,000 people how to lead virtual classes in a week, and then integrate that somehow in the back end and with our payment system. And the whole company worked together. And in 11 days, we rolled out our virtual solution. We just converted all of our classes to virtual for about 60 days. We closed all the outdoor classes early, gave our members a virtual option. And the month of April was the best revenue month in company history and the lowest churn month in the company history. Wow. And it was, in the industry, devastating. Yeah. Gyms were down 90%, bankruptcies of all the big boxes, et cetera. And we just really give that up to entrepreneurs and headquarters working together, delivering a solution that our customers really loved as fast as humanly possible.
Yeah, that's amazing. By the way, we're getting some hellos from all over the place here. We've got hellos coming in from Utah, from Mexico, from France, and from Vermont. So hello, Sarah, Thomas, Octavio. Hello, everyone. I think Tom's in there. Thanks for joining us. All right, so we are moving on to question number 8 here, Jeff. Speaking of your franchisee, your franchise owners, your franchisees, your business model includes these Camp Gladiator trainers. That's what you call your franchise owners, which is across the country. Why did you start out going this route? How did you know it would work for you?
Well, we actually started out with an independent contractor model. And we recruited our first 2 trainers in. We felt like partnership was the right way to go, and that They would be responsible for leading great experiences, great camps, sales and marketing of their camps. And then behind the scenes, we would build the back office infrastructure to support their business. We didn't feel like a big upfront fee was really necessary. And so we just used a $500 sort of starter kit model and then a profit sharing arrangement on the back end. Of course, scrutiny on independent contractors has been a well-documented thing over the last decade. And so we started our conversion about 3 years ago to franchise and really learned that you could basically franchise what we were already doing and really give more protections both to our partner trainers as well as the company. And now we could scale in all 50 states and internationally. And so that's the biggest reason we decided to change, is so we could scale across the country. And the franchise model is really beautiful for that.
Are you going to scale internationally? Are you going global?
Yeah, so, well, again, on January 1st of last year, we were occupying 7 US states. And when we rolled out our virtual product, of course, we didn't have the website, we didn't have the accounting figured out, but we had the ability for people to sign up anywhere. And so by July, we had customers in all 50 states and 16 countries.
Wow,
so
that's amazing.
Virtually anywhere in the world. We have 1,000 trainers. It's only about $25 a month for a certified trainer, unlimited sessions with them, which is unbelievable. And our outdoor model, we have a 10-year roadmap that we've launched, which includes sweeping across the entire United States. And on the back end of that roadmap is when we're going to try to launch internationally outdoor camps.
That's great. So for those of you, Tom from Utah, Octavio from Mexico, it's coming your way. So stay tuned. They were asking when are you going to be live in Utah? When are you going to be live in Mexico? So that's great. Now I have to ask, what sort of challenges come with franchising like this, and how did you overcome them?
Well, converting 1,000 people to a franchise is a unique challenge because they sort of agreed to one structure, and then now you're moving to a new one. And so that's like, we didn't have one, but if you're a little bit larger, you'd probably hire like a VP of change management to just manage this like 2-year project and all the communication and rollout. We were able to retain 99% of our full-time trainers. So we were very successful in our conversion, but it was a pain. And I think we learned the biggest lesson on that conversion that we learn on all big projects is more time spent on the front end. Like I talked to my CFO and my internal counsel about this, and they estimated if they had spent 50 more hours on the front end documenting and writing that project, that it probably would have saved 150 to 250 external legal hours, which is like $100,000. So, because the project wound up going over budget, and we just, more documentation on the front end is just always the lesson.
Yeah, that's great advice. Final question here. I read on your website that your trainers get to do what they love, choosing when, where, and how often they train their community of campers. How do you think that's impacted the success of your business, like your trainers' happiness, your franchisee owners' happiness? How does that impact Camp Gladiator's success?
Yeah, I mean, you want your partners to feel empowered. And when we built our franchise model, we wanted to give them the flexibility of choice. If they wanted to work in the mornings or evenings, if they wanted to structure this around some other business environments that they have going on, we wanted to give them that flexibility with the underlying belief that the more empowered they are, the more they're going to take control of their own destiny, the more successful they're going to be. So we try to bring that theme of empowerment into every business decision we possibly can and include them and give them as much flexibility as possible. And that's really worked. It's allowed our culture to be strong, people to be happy, and they work hard. It's an entrepreneurial journey, so it's not easy, but at least they feel like they're in control of their world.
Of course, of course. Well, that's it for my questions, but we've definitely got some questions coming in from the audience now. Starting off with, what business decisions have allowed you to keep costs low for your members? I actually read about this too. You're able to keep costs low for your members, and that's wonderful. But how?
Yeah, I mean, at the core, you start to think about our model, and we don't have studios, facilities. We're leveraging school, fields, parks, and churches. So our model is extremely capital light, and our belief is the reason that you should pay is for the community and the certified trainer. It's extremely capital light because we don't have infrastructure. And then the second thing I would say is automation. At our headquarters, we try to build everything that we can as lean as possible and for the long run. So for example, we have 3,500 outdoor locations that all work on a P&L, and we share profit with our trainers. Well, we have one employee in our accounting department that basically hits a button one time, and that's integrated in with NetSuite and our own proprietary Salesforce integrated accounting system. And we have 3,500 Camp Lead P&Ls done, again, with one employee doing that. But to get there overnight, you have to think through in the long run, how can I automate this to make this super efficient so that I can leverage the economies of scale of the business?
Yeah, that's great. Actually, there was a third question coming in. I'll come back to that second one, but the third one coming in here was, so why did you choose to implement NetSuite over competitors?
Yeah, well, I've got a very capable CFO, and we actually were running QuickBooks Enterprise until we hit about 29 million in revenue here in Austin. And I was told that we may be the largest company in town on QuickBooks, and that we had definitely outgrown that. So my CFO, it was like his first thing he did back in 2015, 2016 when he came on board is, look at all the competitors. And he basically said, this is kind of a no-brainer solution. We should be with NetSuite. They're the leader in the space. And it's been a beautiful tool for us ever since. And it's integrated in with all that we're doing.
Love to hear it. Okay, I like this question. How do you balance work and life when running a company with your spouse?
Yeah, I think it starts with priorities. So, whenever you do something for 12 years, you've had a chance to go through the highs and lows. And Allie and I have a 8-month-old, a 3-year-old, and a 4-year-old.
Wow.
We're running a $50 million business with 1,100 people involved. But it is clear to both of us that our family is the top priority.
Yeah.
And we really start with their activities and their worlds. Our marriage is our next priority. So we've blocked out really from 6 to 9 p.m. each evening where we don't do meetings anymore. It's very rare. We don't bring work home with us. We put that into the daytime hours. And then once you start with those priorities, you can fill all the rest of your time up. And so I do a session on Sunday nights and many, 10 p.m. to midnight CEO hours, like I know so many of you do. But if you have that backwards, if it's all about the business, you're not going to find time left over for your family. So I would just say it starts with what matters most.
That's great. All right, final question here. What has been your biggest lesson on your entrepreneurial journey to date?
Never quit. Never quit. Our growth has been great, whatever, 60% CAGR since inception. But there's been so many times that there was some obstacle, some gladiator where it felt like the very existence of the business was being threatened. Whether that was, IP lawsuit in the 2nd year, an audit of our independent contractor classification in our 8th year, a pandemic in our 12th year. It just never seems to stop. Life throws major curveballs, major obstacles. And of all the successful people I know, the thing that they credit the most was no matter how hard it got, no matter how challenging, no matter how the odds look stacked against you, just don't give up. Yeah. And if you never quit, you just stay after it, you honestly can't help but succeed. So keep at it.
I love how you brought that full circle to question number 1, how Camp Gladiator and your entrepreneurial journey, how that relates to American Gladiator. I think that's great. Don't quit. Even when those gladiators, those big obstacles are in your way, you keep going. So Jeff, I so appreciate it. This was an awesome conversation, and thank you so much for joining us.
It's wonderful being here. The last little plug I was going to give is while you never want to quit, you also have to enjoy the journey every step of the way.
There you go.
Enjoy the journey because there's no championship at the end, right? It's the rest of your life, your businesses. Right. So enjoy every moment that you can.
That's great. Thank you so much, Jeff. And as always, to all of you for tuning in, a big, big thank you. Please continue to tune in. We will actually be back next week with the founder of Sarah Flint. I'll see you then. Bye.